Good morning, everyone. We will now start our Zoning Board of Adjustment. So welcome to everyone that's in the audience. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais, and I know some of you have already submitted those. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary over to the side. At this time, we would like to ask that any member of the audience has a cell phone or any other electronic devices that you turn it off or turn it to ringer to silent. If you need to place a call, please step out to the hallway so that the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1 is hereby open. That would be the minutes. Thank you. Okay. Eric's made the motion, and Mike Kwasny seconded it. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that item is closed, and now we'll go to item number 2.
Thank you. Item number 2 is 19 VA003, which is a variance request to allow multiple reduced setbacks and increased lot densities for the property located at the corner of Twin Elms Drive and Chandra Street. This item was continued from the May 23rd Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting to allow the applicant's consultant to meet with staff to potentially redesign the site plan for the property. Additionally, variance requests on this property were heard on February 7th, 2019 that were similar in nature that were denied by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The subject property is 0.48 acres in size and is zoned medium density residential district. It's part of the Canyon Lake Overlay District. This is an aerial overview of the property. And on the existing parcel, there are 3 individual lots. On those lots, there's an existing single-family home, an existing duplex, and an existing single-family home, in addition to multiple accessory structures here on the northwest side and then along the side on the duplex. Future land use for the property identifies it as urban neighborhood. And on the city's major street plan, both Twin Elms Drive and Chandra Street are listed as local streets. So this is the site plan that was submitted with the application. I'll go into the specific variance requests first before we continue on analyzing the site plan. Specifically on proposed lot 1AR, the applicant has requested a reduced front yard setback for single-family residence from 25 feet to 5.64 feet here. A reduced rear yard setback for the single-family residence from 25 feet to 7.57 feet on this side, and to allow a reduced lot size of 5,643.1 square feet in lieu of the 6,500 square feet required for a single-family residence. For the existing duplex on lot 2AR, the applicant has requested a reduced lot size for a duplex from 8,000 square feet to 6,276.6 square feet. In the initial site plan that was submitted with this application, the applicant also requested variances on proposed lot 3AR, where there is a proposed duplex footprint shown on the site plan. The applicant has reduced the footprint for the duplex, negating the need for a lot coverage variance and for a reduced side yard setback for that duplex. The subject property is approximately 21,066 square feet total between all 3 lots. The applicant initially last fall intended to subdivide the existing lots to redevelop each lot individually. The resulting subdivision of the lots created additional right-of-way that was needed and further encroached the existing setbacks on those structures. At the time, staff supported an overall density of 4 dwelling units between all 3 lots for that total campus of 21,066 square feet. The applicant has intended to create 5 dwelling units by creating this additional proposed duplex on lot 3AR, renovating the existing duplex on proposed lot 2AR, and renovating the existing single-family residence on lot 1AR. That density of 5 dwelling units exceeds the overall campus total for the property. The applicant's intent is to have 2 dwelling units on lot 3AR and leave 3 dwelling units between lot 1AR and 2AR. With the revised site plan, they still intend to keep that duplex on Lot 3AR. However, the existing square footage between existing or proposed Lot 1AR and proposed Lot 2AR is 11,919 feet. For 3 dwelling units, it would need to be in excess of 14,500 units to keep a duplex and a single-family unit on those 2 lots. If the applicant's intent is to develop Lot 3AR as a duplex lot, staff cannot support the variances as requested for Lot 1AR and 2AR based on the existing densities on those 2 proposed lots. And as such, staff would recommend denial of the variances on Lot 1AR and 2AR, citing that they are not the minimum adjustment necessary to provide reasonable use of the land, since there is an existing single-family residence and an existing duplex on proposed Lot 1AR and 2AR currently. This is the elevation of the proposed duplex for Lot 3AR that the applicant has submitted, showing that it is single story. And staff does appreciate the applicant's intent to redevelop the neighborhood and the property. We certainly think that the proposed elevations in the duplex would be an improvement on the property. It's just that the overall density for what the applicant has proposed exceeds the density that would be allowed by the zoning ordinance. I was able to visit the site plan and take a few photos. This is a shot of proposed Lot 3AR, noting that existing single-family residence there, some of the accessory structures in the back. This is a shot to the west along Chandra Street, noting the narrow width of the streets that exists. This is a looking to the south along Twin Elms Drive, again noting the narrow streets in the neighborhood. This is the existing single-family residence on proposed Lot 1AR, noting the encroachment right now into the setback as it exists. That would be potentially furthered if there was ever additional right-of-way dedicated with the proposed preliminary subdivision plan. This is a view of the existing duplex on proposed Lot 2AR. And the only variance requested there is for reduced lot size for a duplex based on the resulting movement of those lot lines if the subdivision plat were to move forward. And this is a view again looking to the east along Chandra Street, just showing that reduced front yard setback again for the existing single-family residence. And this is a view of the rear yard of the existing single-family residence, showing that reduced 7.57 foot requested rear yard setback. With that, as I mentioned, staff would recommend denial of the variance requests on Lot 1AR to reduce the front yard setback for the single-family residence from 25 feet to 5.64 feet, to reduce the rear yard setback for the single-family residence from 25 feet to 7.57 feet, and to reduce the minimum lot size required for a single-family home from 6,500 square feet to 5,643.1 square feet. On Lot 2AR, staff would also recommend denial of the request to reduce the minimum lot size for a proposed duplex, for an existing duplex, from 8,000 square feet to 6,276.6 square feet, citing criteria number 4, that it is not in harmony with the general intent and spirit of the ordinance, and that it is not the minimum adjustment necessary to achieve reasonable use on the land, criteria number 1. Staff would also recommend that the Zoning Board of Adjustment acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal of the variance request for proposed Lot 3AR to allow a maximum lot coverage of 38% in lieu of a maximum of 30% allowed, and to reduce the required side yard setback to 9.08 feet in lieu of 12 feet required for Lot 3AR. And with that, staff will be available for any questions if you have them at this time. I believe the applicant's consultant is also in the audience, and multiple members of the neighborhood are also here to weigh in. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So we definitely see the benefit that the applicant is trying to bring to the neighborhood. We had met with Kevin back when he was proposing to move those lot lines and refurbish those homes, removing that one single-family home on Lot 3AR. And we had discussed at that time that we could look at a minimum adjustment and support reducing setbacks as a part of dedicating additional right-of-way. We could support side yard setback reductions to get the lot lines where they needed to be in order to secure not only lots for these renovated homes and for the new home, but to provide that off-street parking that's required as a part of any residential development. And so we thought we were all going down the same path together. When the application came in and it showed a duplex on Lot 3R instead of a single-family home, the numbers just don't crunch. It's just one unit too many. They have just enough acreage to do 4 units, 2 single-family homes and a duplex. So if it were the desire of the applicant to come back with the density that we had originally discussed, staff would be bringing you a different recommendation today on these variances. So John did a great job presenting all of the facts on the case, and we just don't feel that this is the minimum adjustment necessary to assist this property owner in renovating these parcels. It's just one unit too many.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. I don't see anybody on the dais that has a question, so we'll go with the speaker request forms. And the first one is from Tanya Anderson. If you would just state your name and address at the podium, yes.
Hello, my name is Tanya Andreessen, and I live at 23795 Chuckwagon Court. I am the sole owner of KTA Properties. It's not a big company. It is owned by my husband, managed as well by owned by me, managed as well by my husband. Developed so that we could move back to Rapid City as our source of income and being able to live here. I don't know, I'm going to start with saying, just before I go into that, I don't know where the miscommunication was, because when we bought this property, it has always been that we had intended to build a duplex on the lot. So single family has never been an option for us. The only way to support this project is the revenue that will come from a duplex. A single family home will not supply the revenue to do all this redevelopment in the neighborhood. I am passionate about redeveloping this neighborhood because this is my neighborhood. I grew up one street over. My parents have lived in the same house for 54 years. They still live there. I want this neighborhood improved. I want it to look better. I want it cleaned up. By adding this duplex, by taking out the single-family home, the garage, the carports, the multiple sheds, we actually end up with 200 less square footage of roof than we currently have on the property. My other benefit of dividing it into 3 lots is then it's single-family homes that can be resold, as opposed to having one big lot that is only available for investors. We just bought this property in February. I mean, we really hope to improve it and redevelop it, but the only way to do that is with having the duplex on the lot. If the duplex does not work, no improvement happens in the neighborhood, like in our lot, because the revenue is not there to provide it. It remains status quo as it is. We rent out the 3 existing units. I understand the streets are narrow, but this was a neighborhood built in 1950. I have nothing, I mean, I owned this property a few months. The streets are narrow, I agree. Our proposed duplex lot provides 6 parking spots, 2 pad sites for each side, as well as the garage that's currently there will be included for one side of the duplex, which has 2 car parking in it. So we are providing 6 off-parking spots for this duplex in our proposed lot, as well as taking down all these unsightly structures that are currently on the property. I mean, my hope is that you can look at this project as what it can do for the neighborhood and improving the neighborhood. In talking to the neighbors, I know there was a lot of concern about, one, that we were building an apartment building, that they were huge, that we were a huge corporation, and that's not what we are. Our full intent is to improve and help this neighborhood so that people and families continue to live there and want to live there. I mean, that is our goal. So I just appeal to you that you would consider letting us redevelop this, as opposed to just leaving it as it currently is, where you have 3 properties on one lot that is only available to investors to purchase going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Anderson. The next speaker request form is from Mike Toohey.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Toohey with KTM. We've been working with KTA Properties to help make these improvements. I'd like to mirror a lot of what Mrs. Andresen just said. The improvements need to be done. It would be greatly beneficial. They're adding parking. The net decrease in roof areas is a huge benefit. And one other follow-up is the proposed duplex is not any bigger than the single-family. Again, to follow up on her thoughts, is really this is an improvement without being able to be allowed to put in the duplex. As she said, this project doesn't go forward and the area stays the same as it is today. So I'll be around if you have any other questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. The last request form is from Jamie Fisher.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Fisher. I live at 2012 Twin Elms. I don't know if I have some photos too. I don't know if I can show them to you guys now or not. I own the property right next to the white duplex. So these changes directly affect my property. Sorry. The garage, the 26 by 36 garage is right behind my house. So I look at it every day. And if a duplex is put up there, they'll be looking right into my backyard. And like you've said, I appreciate you guys taking the time today to hear us and your staff going out to actually look at the property and get a feel of the streets, the lots, the neighborhood. I guess I almost feel like if they're trying to improve the neighborhood, they wouldn't be saying, if we can't do a duplex on this, the property stays status quo. That's basically saying, if you don't agree with us, you don't let us put up a single family house, then you're going to have to live with all these accessory buildings that are empty and taking up space and make the neighborhood look terrible. I don't agree with that. I agree with the recommendations that it's got enough square footage for a single family house on that lot 3AR. And if you want to take down the one that's currently there and put up a better one and nicer one, I'm all for that. That improves the look. But adding a duplex, it adds more density than is already there. Just to show you some photos we took. My wife and I have 2 kids. There's kids in our block. We have 2 dogs. We walk around the neighborhood every day. And the units that are already there, there's cars parked on the sidewalks all the time. There's trash cans that are on the sidewalks all the time, so we have to walk in the street with our kids in the strollers, with our dogs. It's just, it's not good to be adding more density to this neighborhood. So that's one of the properties right there. Cars, if there's a car on the sidewalk like that, which there is every time I go to work, there's a car on the sidewalk. Come home for lunch, there's a car on the sidewalk. And I've contacted code enforcement to say what can be done about this. And I don't know if they've stopped or not, but just to kind of give you an idea of what we live with as neighbors on a daily basis. And like I said, I just feel like adding another duplex and adding more congestion to the street and the neighborhood. And for these people that have lived in that neighborhood for 30 years isn't right. So that's what I've got. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay, that's the end of the speaker request forms, so any discussion? Vince?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, I'd like to ask Tonya a question, if I may, please. Okay. Thank you for being here to explain your point. If you could help me clarify, the staff has said that you were in conversations regarding this property. Was there a change in your mind from what you originally told the staff to where you're at today?
We have always intended to put a duplex there. I mean, we bought the property with the previous owner telling us that he had intended to build a duplex, just had never gotten around to it. So single family on this lot has never actually ever been. And I mean, we've always said that we wanted a duplex on this lot. That was always our intention. Another thing I would kind of like to add just about this is that the only properties on this entire street and block that have sidewalks are 2 that I own that have been improved. By splitting these lots, we are adding sidewalks around here. So this walking in the street happens everywhere else. His property does not have a sidewalk in front of it. If we can improve these properties, they will have sidewalks in front of them. That is one of the improvements that we intend to make to these properties.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to this item? Let me ask a question. Sorry, Eric. Go ahead. You can start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we hashed this out previously, there was a lot of discussion about the cars on the sidewalk having to walk in the streets, accessed by the fire department. We talked about tearing down a lot of old buildings, old structures to improve the lot coverage. But when we sent back some recommendations, I don't see that any of those recommendations that we talked about were really followed through with. And quite frankly, when we have a certain lot coverage percentage, it's for a reason, and that's set at 30%, and this is asking to be up to 38%. For this size of lot, we're allowing 4 units, and we're requesting 5 units, so increase in density. And I can appreciate, improving the neighborhood and taking down the structures, good, but it still does not meet the zoning board requirements for this particular project. And I would be extremely hesitant about approving anything along this line. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Kurt.
I'm looking at the site plan here, and we're just looking at lots 1AR and 2AR, correct?
Correct.
Tanya had mentioned that they're going to have 6 off-street parking spots, and I don't see those identified on the site plan. Where were you talking about?
Those will be on the lot 3AR site. Currently on 1AR, there is 2 spots, and on 2AR, there are 4 spots. We will be taking down there are overhangs, like carports on both sides of the house. The part that has the cross lines on it will be taken out just to reduce roof coverage, but that is a driveway all along. From the front of the yard all the way back is all driveway on both sides of the duplex. So there is off-street parking for a minimum of 4 cars on 2AR and 2 spots on 1AR currently existing. The added spots will be on, well, the garage holds 2 that's currently there, but there will be 4 added spots on 3AR if we're allowed to build the duplex.
You mean there's 6 spots that will be on 1AR and 2AR?
No. Currently, there are 4 spots on 2AR and 2 spots on 1AR. So currently, there are 6 spots there. We are proposing to add 6 more spots to 3AR.
Okay. All right, and I know when we talked about this before, one of the big sticking points was tearing down and removing some of those accessory structures, which I believe in the original plan were going to stay there, and that was my big hang-up with the whole thing. And now it looks like you're going to be taking down a lot of those buildings, and I think that's a good thing. I do see this as an improvement to the lot. Granted, it's a tight area with parking availability and sidewalks, but I think the actual improvements that you're doing to the buildings and tearing down those old junk, what I call junk buildings, is an improvement to the neighborhood. So I appreciate the work you've done to make this a little more sellable, and I'd like to hear some more comments, but it looks pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Vicki, you had a comment?
If you could put that site plan back up. Thank you, Madam Chair. Eric, you are correct. When this variance came forward before and the Zoning Board of Adjustment ultimately denied it the first time, one of the directions was that Lot 3AR, the lot line on the west side, needed to be moved so that Lot 1AR and 2AR were larger, hopefully meeting those lot size requirements for the single family and getting as close as possible for the duplex. So it is difficult when the applicant takes Lot 3AR out of this equation, then the campus plan just doesn't work. I think that the 21,066 square feet does support one duplex, 2 single-family homes, and certainly that could be done again on this site. We have visited with them, noting that with the garage being left on the south end of Lot 3AR, there may be some consideration of slightly smaller lots for 1AR and 2AR in order to secure some access to that garage. I'll just finish with noting that we would need to see a site plan of those 6 spaces that are proposed on Lot 3AR. You couldn't line them up along Chambers Street where they all back out into the right-of-way. There's approach widths that are narrower than that, and so I'm not sure how that would work. They would be required to have 4 parking spaces. But again, the position that staff is bringing to you is that we have to look at what is the minimum adjustment necessary to secure reasonable use of these properties. They've got enough lot size for 2 single-family and a duplex. Anything beyond that goes above minimum adjustment necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Kurt?
So how much bigger would lots 1AR and 2AR? I'm trying to figure out if they slid that east lot line to the east farther, then of course we'd be infringing on the setbacks on Lot 3AR when that came up. I mean, are we talking, 10 feet or 5 feet in order to make those lots big enough to comply?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Deja vu. This is the exact conversation we had the last time. And we all decided we weren't going to design it in the middle of a meeting.
Right.
But the minimum lot size for 1AR would need to be 6,500 square feet. The minimum lot size for Lot 2AR would need to be 8,000 square feet. Now remember, the structure is, the residential structure is being removed on Lot 3AR. So they would need to come up with a design of a single-family home that would meet the side yard setbacks, 8 foot for single-story, 12 foot for 2-story, and there's a reasonable footprint that would allow that to happen. Again, even if both lots were adjusted so that they were 6,500 square feet, only seeking a lot size variance for Lot 2AR instead of 1AR as well, there's flexibility in trying to meet that minimum adjustment necessary to secure 3 reasonable building pads, but that 4th unit, or excuse me, that 2nd unit on Lot 3AR puts it over the top.
Thank you. Anything further, Kurt?
No further
Okay.
questions.
Mike?
This looks like a great plan as far as improving the area. You've got an area that is very dense. I mean, I've been out in there and I have had relatives that have lived out there, and you've got a lot of houses in a small area. It's built a lot of years ago. That's how houses were built. They weren't built with a lot of area for yards and so forth. It was, the needs were less. The problem is, it sounds like we're trying to redesign, and I think we need to come into the meeting with a design that works. I guess I would propose that we have it move to the next meeting and have come up with a better design on this. I like what they're trying to do. I hope that Tanya continues to improve the neighborhood. I hope that she takes out the sheds that are not necessary. It cleans up things. That should go without say. I just don't see the density. We're just increasing the density so much with the number of people that we're putting in the area. When we add a duplex, you have the potential for 4 to 5 more people. You have a couple more cars, and I understand we've got more parking that we're putting in, but if you're including the garage may be blocked and people are still out in the street. I don't know. I struggle a little bit with what we have, and I think we're trying to redesign still. So,
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Vicki?
So I guess I'm hesitant to do that because we've continued this one already and we've met with them already, and this is what they're set on doing. We heard this variance before. We tried to have that discussion at that meeting too. I think what the applicant is saying today is, for this to work, she needs to have that duplex on Lot 3AR. If she adjusted the lot lines to meet the minimum lot size requirements for the 21,066 square feet, she would only be allowed to have single family. So I don't mean to speak for her, but I think you're wanting action.
I mean, basically, that is what I'm saying. I mean,
Excuse
in order
me.
to have the revenue,
Excuse me.
Ma'am.
We need to go to the mic and then get permission from the chair to speak.
in order to have the project work, I have to have a duplex on the site. So I'm kind of, and I'm done. We're not, and if we move the lot lines, then we don't have the room to put the duplex in. So then we're forcing ourselves out of putting a duplex on the lot by moving the lot lines. Both of these yards, both of these currently existing homes built in the 50s have actually quite big front and backyards to them. I understand it doesn't meet current zoning standards, but they do have quite big lots. We are not interested in redeveloping. If this doesn't work, it doesn't work, we're done. We've already spent thousands of dollars with KTM. Like, I'm not going to continue it further. I'm not going to spend more money to continue to do this. I cannot build a single family. I cannot put the money into building a single family home. It is about the same cost for me to build a single family in a duplex, but my revenue doubles with a duplex. So a single family is not on the option, is not even on the board. This is kind of where we've gotten to what we can do in order to make it work. And if it doesn't work, we're at the point it doesn't work. We don't redevelop the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Vince?
I was prepared to make a motion, but I noticed that Jason wanted to say something, so I will defer.
Okay. Jason?
Well, thank you. I rarely speak in these meetings because it's not always appropriate. Although I'm off the council in less than 2 weeks, I have nothing to lose. You know, listening to this conversation, planning staff always want to make sure we do things in a responsible way, which I really appreciate. We have a great staff. As I listen kind of to the back and forth here, it's kind of symbolic of a lot of our discussions that we have. I grew up in this neighborhood too, on Elmhurst Drive, so I'm very familiar. This is clearly not a well-planned neighborhood back in the day, which is why we have great planning. Had this been well-planned, we'd have all the right-of-ways and setbacks and easements in the proper places. This is not built that way. Houses are built very close to the road. But something I guess I just asked for you to consider as you weigh this and other options. This area is is amazing area. It is in desperate need of redevelopment. And we're talking about, we always talk about things like affordable housing and stuff, and it's great to have multi-unit complexes, but a lot of it's going to take someone willing to invest in a property in kind of an area that's, the trajectory's downhill, to help redevelop it so that perhaps it spurs, redevelopment in that area. We should be looking for a way to make these things possible. Maybe there's things to be worked out with, tweaks and make sure that everything's done in a responsible way, but we should try to make it possible responsibly. This is an area that I really think it's an upgrade. If we leave it as is, it's worse. If they do something, it's better. And somehow I think we have to keep that in mind. If you leave it as is, it's not great, not ideal. You would never pass it at all. But what they're trying to do is do something positive. It actually upgrades it. It makes it better than what it is right now. At the end of the day, that's what we have to look at. Are you happy with the status quo, or do you want something better? And the city's here to make sure that's done responsibly. But that's just something I would ask for you to consider as you weigh these decisions. I'm not going to tell you which way to vote and whether it should be redesigned, and that's up to everybody else. But this is the kind of things that we talk about, I know, on City Council. Is City Council is going to look at this and say, well, does this meet a need? Does it make it better? Does it make Rapid City better? Does it make it worse? If it's going to create all sorts of havoc and issues, it's great. But I mean, they're even putting a sidewalk in. I don't even know how you're putting a sidewalk in. Probably not meeting up very well with everything, but that's great. I'm happy to hear that. So keep that in mind. Does it make it better? Does it make it worse? And is it responsible? Is it safe for the community? Keep those big picture questions in mind as you deliberate. Thanks for letting me chime in. Probably be the last you hear from me. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Vince, did you want to continue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm sure, Jason, it won't be the last we've ever hear from you, so I hope not anyway. I do appreciate the homeowner, the landowner, and the neighbors to come in and explain this to us, because it puts a face to it. And that's extremely important, because we're your neighbors too. We sit on this dais, but we go back to our homes and your neighborhoods and our neighborhoods, and it's one neighborhood. It is a tough debate at this point, because we want to see improvements, we want to make improvements, but then we have to take all of the factors into account. And what I was searching for, and I was listening to the staff, and I was listening to the applicant, and what I wanted to make sure is that, and again, Mike brought up a great point again, but we've already given this time at previous meetings. We actually are rehashing exactly what we went over during the last meeting. So I don't think there's anything new. Yes, I would have loved to have seen a better plan. I have questions about the 6-car garage or parking spaces, but it's not here. And I think we gave that time to make sure it was here so that we could vote on that. So there's some pieces to this missing. And at this point, I'm fully prepared to make a motion, but I understand there are other people that'd like to speak.
Thank you, Vince. Eric?
I can certainly appreciate wanting to improve the area and make improvements to the area, and that's desperately needed in certain areas of Rapid City, there's no doubt. But to increase or improve an area at the sacrifice of increasing density of an area and worsening parking and congestion is just not the way to go about this. There are other ways of improving it. Flipping houses, for example, can often improve an area. But just to increase the density because we're trying to improve an area is not a valid reason. And it goes against the zoning code that we do have. So I would make a motion that we deny the variances that are requested and in agreement with staff recommendations.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor currently to deny the item from Eric and seconded by Mike. And Mike, you have the floor.
I think it's important as Rapid City moves forward that we do improve properties. I think it's important that we have the proper steps taken, and staff has looked at this and they made some recommendations, and I think, Jason, to your point, I think we need to listen to staff a little bit too, and they denied it for a purpose. There's some things that are missing out of this plan, and I think at one point those things will be taken care of, because if we have a plan in the city and we follow it, yes, our job is to allow some variance from that. It just seems like this is a lot of variance, and it might be a bit much for what we have in that area of the city. I think improvements will happen at some point. I don't think that we will not have people take care of homes. We have a great community, and I think it will happen. So.
Okay, thank you. Vicki, do we need to add the number 4 or whatever?
Yes, so if we could, motion maker, a friendly amendment that the variance request is being denied because it is not the minimum adjustment necessary in order to provide a reasonable use of the property.
And you too? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Also to acknowledge the withdrawal of the variance to propose Lot 3AR.
Okay. Can we add that to the motion too, fellas? Okay. So that is the motion on the floor, is to deny the first 2 requests and to acknowledge the withdrawal of item 3AR. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. I'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. So the Kurt and John were no's, and the rest of us were ayes. So, okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that discussion. There's no other business for the Zoning Board of Adjustment, so I take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kurt. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Or I should say, anybody say no? I don't think anybody will. So the motion passes. Okay, we are now open for the Planning Commission meeting, and the same items that I mentioned before about taking a cell phone out, or if you want to speak to an item, please get an item request form, and those still stand. So we'll start with items 1 through 8 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with the staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the City Council, and the City Council will make the final decision with the exception of item number 3, 19 PD 025. And the Rapid City items, actions on this item is final unless all parties appealed that decision to the City Council, and all appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by the close of business on the 7th full calendar day following the action by this Planning Commission. So that's just for item number 3. Okay, we'll start with the consent calendar. Anybody from the staff want to remove it? Okay, how about anybody from the Planning Commission? Okay, any audience member want to remove any item from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, we will take a motion on the consent calendar. Okay, Kurt made a motion to approve. Second by Vince. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, so now we are on to the actual regular items on the agenda. And so the first item is item number 9.
Good morning, Patsy Horton, Long Range Planning. I just have a couple of quick slides for you. Tax Increment District 42 was created in 2003. This is the boundary. This is the interstate right here. We have Cheyenne Boulevard here. This is Elkvale. And this is Homestead. So this is just north of Highway 44, south of the interstate. We did generally one public improvement within this district, and it was to create or construct a water reservoir to serve property generally on the east side of our community. And then the other thing is, here are the costs associated with this particular tax increment district. Our request today is to dissolve this district, but I just wanted to give the public a little information on how this district operated. The water reservoir cost just over $3.3 million. There were some engineering costs, land costs for the access road to purchase the property, some electrical and some security things that were required. In 2003, the base value of this particular district was $1.32 million. At the end of 2018, the valuation was $40.5 million. With this particular district paying off, the revenues from 2018 created are $706,000. So with that, with this district being dissolved, 59.5% of that revenue from 2018 payable in 2019 will go to the school district. The county will receive back 24%, the city will get 16%, and the water district will get 0.12%. But with that, we do recommend approval of dissolving this district. Again, almost 60% of the increment left over from, or the revenue left over from paying this district off will go to the school district. Any questions?
Okay, I don't see any. Thanks, Patsy. Good information. Okay, do I need a motion or discussion? Thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, motion made by Vince and seconded by Mike to approve the dissolution of tax increment district number 42. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're at item 10.
Madam Chair, can we do items 10 through 13 concurrently?
Yes, we can.
Okay, these items, it's two rezones, preliminary subdivision plan and initial plan development, which were continued from Planning Commission in May for a duplex development. The applicant requested that it be continued to this meeting to meet with staff to go over issues. After meeting with staff, the applicant has requested that the applications be withdrawn, and thus staff's recommendation is to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal of the 4 applications.
Great, thank you. Do I hear a motion on that?
Motion.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Okay, Vince made the motion, Kurt seconded. All 4 items from 10 to 13 will be acknowledging the withdrawal of the applicant. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Okay, now we are at item number 14.
All right, item number 14 is 19 PD 022. A final plan development overlay to allow a single-family residence with an oversized garage. Properties located off of Skyline Ranch Road, which is just west of Tower Road. Property zone Park Forest District, which supports large lot single-family residential as a secondary use. Properties surrounding it are also zoned Park Forest District. Currently, the property is void of any structural development. This is an area with larger homes on large lots, this one being 5 acres in size. And we've also seen other requests for oversized garages in this area, including 2 properties to the east, where we had a lot of discussion. And then the adjacent property has some large outbuildings which were constructed before it was annexed into the city. Future land use is forest conservation, so large lot residential would be supported, and then major street plan showing Tower Road as a collector street and Skyline Ranch Road as it's actually a private drive. Site plan, the applicant is proposing to construct a single-family dwelling, and then the oversized garage is a maximum allowed 1,500 square feet, and the applicant's proposing 2 attached garages measuring 2,752 square feet in size, but they were going to be located on 2 levels on 2 different sides of the house. And there we can see on that whole 5 acres what that would look like. The applicant is also requesting an exception to allow a height of 3 stories in lieu of the maximum allowed height of 2.5 stories. Because of the multi-levels of the proposed dwelling, the basement garage is counts as a half-story, and the 3rd floor attic, which is being used as a gym space, counts as a half-story. So it overall is 3 stories. And here we see an elevation showing on that northwest side, away from the or west elevation. If we go back, west elevation, where the lower level garage will be located, facing away from Skyline Ranch Road, so it'll have a minimum, it won't be visible from the road, minimum impact on the neighborhood. That's the lower half-story, and then the upper half-story. Due to the location of the half-story on that west side of the proposed structure, staff is recommending that the exception to allow a height of 3 stories be granted. Because of the way it's built into the how it'll be oriented and built into the landscape, but also that the overall height does not exceed the maximum allowed height of 35 feet. Another elevation showing the other garage, which will be visible from the Skyline Ranch Road. So it'll look like a 2.5-story house with an attached garage, with the oversized garage not being as prominent, which is supported by the comprehensive plan. More elevations showing what it'll look like, and then some floor plans of the garages showing lower level 4 stalls, and then the upper level an additional 2 stalls. Looking into the site, sign is posted on the property. Looking to the west along Skyline Ranch Road, to the south, and then east along Skyline Ranch Road back towards, and again east, the adjacent property. So with that, staff's recommendation is to approve the final plan development overlay. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
We do have a question from Mike.
On the house, the height, when you compare it to the houses that are right there in that same area, it sounds like it's basically about the same height as if you were to look at it visually from the street coming in?
Yes, from Skyline Ranch Road, it'll appear to be a 2.5-story house. That lower half-story will be on the back side, so it won't be visible, and it will be built down into the ground.
I think it's important that we acknowledge the fact that the 3 stories were, if we do allow this, that we're acknowledging that we're not increasing the height in the neighborhood, and I think that's an important factor in this. So.
Also, before you on the dais are 3 emails which were received by the applicant and forwarded to us from people in the neighborhood who are in support of the proposed structure.
Yeah. It looks like a great design. So.
Thank you, Mike. Kurt.
Yeah, and you mentioned these emails here that are at our spots here, and I do see that Mike Gould had a question about removing any trees between their properties. I believe his property is the one to the east. Has that been addressed?
One of the stipulations of approval is that the applicant coordinate with the Rapid City Fire Department to implement a wildland fuels mitigation plan. So it kind of depends on what that plan recommends and how it's implemented. But they'll have to work with the Rapid City Fire Department on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Any further comments? I'll look for a motion.
You want to speak to this?
Okay, do I have a second?
Karen, we do have
Oh.
a speaker request form
Oh,
for this
sorry.
item that's just coming in.
Hold off on the motion for a second, if you don't mind.
Held on.
Okay.
Good morning, Andrew Skull, 2665 Cavern Road, representing Skull Construction, working with the owner, Gloria and Lynn Evans. Just I want to address Kurt's question real quick. Working with the neighbor to remove the minimal amount of trees to be able to continue to provide buffer zone. So we will remove what's necessary for construction, but also work to prevent their privacy. I just have one quick question about the sidewalk stipulation. Is there a difference if it's a private road versus a public road, as Big Sky Ranch Road is a private road? Just a clarification, if I could, from staff.
No, we would treat it as it still has to be, it still has to meet city standards as far as whether it's private or public. And so the process would be to, with a building permit, sidewalk is needed or a variance obtained.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Vince?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since these emails were mentioned, I'd just like to say that these neighbors are getting along swell. I mean, if I'm reading this correctly, when it came to this tree question, they would just want to make sure that they didn't have to spray them again for infestation, which is important. Why waste that? The other thing is that welcome to the neighborhood. Congratulations on your daughter's wedding. So, gee, I'd like to live in that neighborhood.
Okay. No further comments, so I'll go back to the motion that Mike made to approve with staff recommendations.
I would put that in, put a motion to, per staff recommendations, to approve this and move forward. I likewise say it looks great.
And the second was from Vince. Okay. Justin?
I just need to abstain from this vote.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, questions? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve with staff recommendations with Justin abstaining. All those in favor say aye. Aye. A second or opposed? No, none. So motion passes. Thank you. And thank you and congratulations on your new home. Okay, we're at item number 15.
Thank you. Item number 15 is 19 PD 023. It is a major amendment to a plan development overlay for the property located at 3645 Sturgis Road. This major amendment is the third phase of development on the old Freed's Furniture building located on the southwest side of Sturgis Road. The subject property is zoned general commercial district and is approximately 1.28 acres in size. It's adjacent to Sturgis Road and Trailview Drive on the southwest. This is an aerial overview of the property here, noting that it's a full set of suites, and the applicant is intending this major amendment to the plan development overlay to allow a retail development in one of the suites that was previously approved for a child care center. The future land use for the property identifies it as mixed-use commercial, within which general commercial is an identified district. And on the city's major street plan, Sturgis Road is identified as a principal arterial street, and Trailview Drive is listed as a local street. This is an overview of the site plan that was submitted with the application. In previous phases of development on the property, in March of 2018, a plan development overlay was approved to allow an archery center, child care center, and other retail development on the property. In October of 2018, an amendment to the second phase of development on the property allowed a child care center on the northern end of the property. At that time, an exception was granted to allow 71 parking spaces in lieu of the 82 spaces that were required based on the operation plan for the child care center. Negotiations with the child care center have fallen through. As I understand, they will not be occupying the suite that was initially intended in that phase of development, and the applicant has submitted this major amendment to the plan development overlay to dedicate that space for retail development. Retail would have a higher parking count than the child care center would have had based on their operation plan, so the applicant is seeking a new exception to allow 71 parking spaces in lieu of 103 parking spaces required. This is the site plan for the development. In granting the previous parking exceptions, essentially, the site is tightly developed against Sturgis Road. There was previous exceptions granted to allow these spaces, some of these spaces, to back into the right-of-way for Sturgis Road. Additionally, there was exceptions granted for reduced landscaping, provided that that landscaping was located on the west side of the property here and buffered against the residential district. And based on the applicant's site plan and the varied hours of operations for the multiple uses in the building, the archery range, the existing child care center, some of the other retail development, most of the parking will be available at any one time based on those specific uses based on the operation plan for this phase of development. As such, staff would recommend approval of the exception to allow 71 parking spaces in lieu of the 103 parking spaces for this third phase of development on the property based on the applicant's submitted operation plan for that retail space. And this is just an overview of that landscaping plan, again noting that there's a buffer along the west side where that residential district is located across Trailview Drive. This is an overview of some of the signage that's proposed on the building. All signage is in compliance with the Rapid City Municipal Code at this time, and no LED signage is being requested with this application. Again, identifying some of the signage on the east side of the building. And a few of the site photos when I visited the site. This is an overview of the property looking back to the north and west at the northern end of the suite. A view back to the southwest. This is a view to the east across Sturgis Road. A view back to the north showing the development to the north of the subject property. And then view back to the south. And finally, this is on the west side of the building showing what some of the development is that's currently going on there and where that landscaping is going to be proposed over here on this west side of the lot line looking back farther to the residential district beyond Trailview Drive. And with that, staff would recommend approval of the major amendment to the plan development overlay to allow retail development with stipulations as noted in the project report. Staff would be available for questions at this time if you have any, and I believe the consultant for the applicant is also in the audience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions? Want to add anything, Andy?
You did a wonderful job.
All right.
Here to answer questions if necessary.
Okay. Okay, I would accept a motion then. Okay, do I have a second? Is that you, Justin? Oh, it was Eric. Okay. All right, Justin.
I need to abstain from this vote as well.
Okay. Okay, motion on the floor is to approve with staff recommendations with Justin abstaining. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. We are at item number 16.
Item 16 is 19 PD 024, a major amendment to a plan development to expand an existing on-sale liquor use in conjunction with a microbrewery. This is specifically for property located at 4624 Creek Drive, Suite 6, and it is Democracy Beer Company. Back in, 2017, there was a major amendment to a plan development to allow a microbrewery to be located on the property. They're now proposing a 1,600 square foot expansion into an adjacent suite. Property zone general commercial district and is located along a developing commercial corridor along Elkville Road and Marlin Drive, with some light industrial and heavy industrial to the south and some general agriculture district on the north side of Elkville Road. This is the aerial view showing the existing building and footprint, and there's a very similar, exactly the same building located on the property to the south, split up into suites for commercial development. Future land use and showing that Elkville Road is an entrance corridor into the city, as well as being a principal arterial street on the city's major street plan, with that north-south being a minor arterial and Marlin Drive being a collector street. Site plan, landscape plan, nothing's changing. They're not adding to the building or changing any of the landscaping. The proposed use doesn't increase parking. They are providing the required parking for the proposed use. And this photo shows the existing suites. And then, so they're located on the west end of the building, currently in this area, and they're proposing to expand into the adjacent suite for additional storage space, as well as an event area or overflow seating should they get really busy. Some elevations from the original review, parking plan, and then applicants submitted some showing their signage. They have space on the pole sign as well as on the building. Here we have, looking into the site, the signs are posted on the property. And again, the pole sign on that northwest corner. Looking to the west, we have some undeveloped land. Looking along Elkville to the west, and then north, on the north side of Elkville, again undeveloped, and to the east along Elkville. And then this is looking at where their access is, and then the building to the south of them, where if there is needed, the property owner does own both sites and is okay with overflow parking going over there, but it shouldn't be an issue. There isn't any residential within 500 feet or parks, schools, etc. Staff is recommending that the major amendment be approved with stipulations noted in the staff report.
Okay, thanks, Fletcher. Comments, questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Okay. Do I have a second? Yes. All right, Justin, thank you. Okay, motion is to approve with Vince making the motion and Justin seconding that. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're at item 17.
Item number 17 is 19 UR011, a conditional use permit to allow on-sale liquor in conjunction with a video gaming lounge. Specifically, what the applicant is intending to do is to serve beer and wine at a full-service bar for enthusiasts for something known as esports, which includes video gaming, online gaming, virtual reality, and so forth. The applicant is in the audience. When we get to that point, I'm sure I'll have him come up and explain a little bit more about the operation plan for the business. The subject property is zoned general commercial district and is approximately 1.13 acres in size. It's located along Sturgis Road at 4095 Sturgis Road. This is an aerial overview of the property, and this is the location of a bar that was previously known as the Buck and Gator Bar that had been out in the county before it was annexed into the city. Future land use for the property identifies it as mixed-use commercial. And on the city's major street plan, Sturgis Road is identified as a principal arterial street. This is the site plan that was submitted with the application for the on-sale use. There was multiple issues on the property that were not conforming to today's zoning standards. As part of this application, because this property has been vacant, landscaping and some of those non-conforming pieces will be updated with this change in use. So I want to make note of that landscaping will be compliant, in addition to the parking issues that had previously been non-compliant, that with that change of use on the building permit, those pieces are shown as being updated into compliance with city code. The property itself will be accessed off of Sturgis Road with parking over on the north side of the building, over here, and along the southwest side of the building on that side there. The applicant's operation plan lists that they would like to be open from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. 7 days a week. They may intend to shorten that, but that's at least the longest time period that they would project to be open at any one point. Based on the operation plan and the special circumstances and niche for this use, there had been previous issues with some of the residential areas to the northwest of this property with the previous use that was on the property with a full-service bar. The applicant's intent is that this isn't operating as a full-service bar first. It's operating as a networking opportunity for those esports enthusiasts that happens to have on-sale beer and wine available and potentially host tournaments and so forth that go along with that. So based on the operation plan for the applicant for this use, staff does not see this as having an adverse impact on the neighborhood. It's not located within 500 feet of any residential, of any parks, churches, or schools. It is 230 feet to the nearest residential area up here to the northwest. Again, based on the applicant's operation plan, staff does not see that this would have an adverse impact on that neighborhood, and we've received no complaints from the neighborhood based on this proposed use on the property.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So just kind of wanted to give a shout out to the applicants in bringing this forward. We've looked at many different reuses of this site since the Buck and Gator shut down, and this does seem to be a very reasonable reuse of this property. We'll have a very unique clientele, and certainly takes away from that true bar-type atmosphere. Even though on sale will be, beer and wine would be available, it won't be that primary use. In addition, this structure hasn't met fire code, the parking hasn't been in compliance, and they've been working with staff to meet all those new criteria. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a far better site for the neighborhood than it's been in the past.
Thanks, Vicki.
Move on. This is just an overview of the signage that's proposed with the building. Signage will be in compliance with the Rapid City Municipal Code. And then these are the photos of the property showing the sign that was posted for notification. An overview of the building itself. View back to the north along Sturgis Road. View to the east across the road. To the south. And then back to the west and southwest showing that residential area, noting the difference in topography between the proposed use and those homes, and also just the distance between them. With that, staff would recommend approval of the conditional use permit to allow on-sale liquor in conjunction with a video gaming lounge with recommendations as outlined in the project report. At this time, staff would be available for questions if you have any, and I believe the applicant is also in the audience if you have any questions for him. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, comments or questions? Vince.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I can ask about the sign, it says that you're not intending to use LED. So will that sign be illuminated at night?
Sir, I'm Daniel Byers. I'll be the owner of the company. That sign will be lit, just be backlit.
Okay, and it's in compliance with the city ordinances regarding the lighting on that sign?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? Eric?
I saw an exception was made for opaque fencing in the the back between the residences and the business. Was that in compliance with asking the neighbors if they minded if there wasn't any kind of fencing there, or how was that exception?
Madam Chair.
kind of granted?
The exception for the opaque fence was based on the topography on the site and some of the existing vegetation that was screened on that northwest side of the property. So the applicant's justification for granting the exception was the topography between the two uses, between the residential uses and that on-sale use. And also the ground is uneven in that area, and the fence may have not served that purpose based on what that topography already is between those two buildings. And that was the justification for granting that exception.
If I could tag on. It looked like the houses were well above in terms of elevation and would look down on this property. So I could see what Vince was saying about the lighting and also the goings-on of that company, you know, from somebody's back deck or something like that. But you feel like the topography and the landscaping is sufficient to block that from the residences?
Correct. That was staff's determination for the exception request. And the exception request was a separate file from the conditional use permit because it needed to be administratively reviewed unless it was within a planned development. Staff didn't receive any phone calls from any of the neighborhood concerned with the use or potential lighting issues with the use.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Vicki.
So, Eric, you're correct. Those residences that we saw do sit up higher, and putting a 6-foot opaque screening fence along the lot line as required would not serve a purpose. They would look right over the top of that fence. So as you have done in the past as a part of several planned developments, when it doesn't actually provide screening, we don't require the screening fence.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Vince. Eric. Eric seconded that motion. Vince made the motion to approve item number 17 with staff recommendations. No further comments, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are now at item 18.
Good morning, Kelly Brennan, Long Range Planning. So a few months back, we came to you and asked if you would sponsor a comprehensive plan amendment. As you know, Rapid City's comp plan was adopted in June of 2014. One of the recommendations is to periodically review and make changes as needed. So city staff has been working for the past few months on making some changes, and we came up with quite a few actual land use changes, and then also some changes to the zoning designation table. So I'm going to go through those today with you, and I'm going to be quick. So if you have any questions, just stop me, because there's a lot of them. Okay, so number one. This determination was to change from light industrial to mixed-use commercial. This is the Interstate 90 and Deadwood Avenue intersection. This is just to enable development of a wider variety of commercial uses, including tourism-based. Number two, this is the stretch downtown. It used to be the MG Oil building, all the way through over to Deadwood Avenue. It's kind of one little piece of light industrial that still exists within the city. We're proposing to change that to mixed-use commercial, and again, just to further some development opportunities. These are just some cleanups, and we do have quite a few of these. So currently they're forest conservation. We're proposing to change them to low-density neighborhood. It's existing residential use on the property at this time. Whoops. So this is out kind of by Menards, I guess you could say, East North Street, North Creek Drive. This is a developer-driven proposed change. We're just changing from light industrial to mixed-use commercial and urban neighborhood. This will allow residential and commercial growth that's proposed. We've seen some master plans for this. Same as this one, this is also developer-driven to provide single-family and multifamily residential lots. This is the big one that came through City Council last week or this week, so this is just Shepherd Hills, thank you. So this is just cleaning up the land use to meet those needs. This area off Elkville Road is currently employment, but is almost entirely zoned light industrial. One of the goals of the comprehensive plan is to preserve some industrial space within the city, and this is a good area for that as it already is mostly industrial. So we're just changing the determination to, or proposing to change the determination to secure that industrial space. Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. In addition, on the east side of the road, we're changing that from urban neighborhood to mixed-use commercial, just a higher level of commercial uses that are available as that's developing. That is a principal arterial, and so urban neighborhood would allow for residential use, which is not really the greatest. This is just another cleanup to match the underlying zoning designation. This is a general commercial lot, so we're just changing it from urban neighborhood to mixed-use commercial. This is another cleanup. The triangle-shaped lot to the west was changed, rezoned and changed probably about a year ago. Part of that recommendation when staff came forward with that comprehensive plan amendment was to continue the urban neighborhood designation along Mall Drive. So there's quite a few parts to this one. If you're looking at 11A and 11B, those are just cleanups. Those are mixed-use commercial that should have never been mixed-use commercial. So those are residential lots that we're just cleaning up. 11C is just a sliver that got missed at some time during the mapping process, so really not an issue. 11D, E, and F, we're proposing to change those from low-density neighborhood and mixed-use commercial to urban neighborhood to create a buffer between the single-family residential to the northwest and the commercial to the south. And this use would facilitate both single-family, multifamily, and office commercial uses. 12A and 12B. So with 12A, we're extending the employment center designation all the way down to the principal arterial. It was kind of a weird land use to have a little tiny sliver of residential use in there and then right up against that principal arterial again. And then the mixed-use commercial is an appropriate land use for that intersection as the development is occurring out there. We've got, some major streets that are coming together. We see the growth happening that way. I will note that some of these properties are in the county, but they are in our platting jurisdiction, so we are making those changes. Okay, so this property was rezoned last year. It's a bank and a coffee shop now, so this is just a cleanup to make an employment center that fits with the zoning. So this area we're proposing to change to light industrial. The current zoning is mostly industrial uses, and honestly more than 50% of this area is actually floodplain. There's only a tiny little piece that's zoned or low density neighborhood, so it just seemed more fitting to have this retain that industrial nature. Number 15 was originally mixed-use commercial. We're proposing to change it to light industrial, as that's just how the development has happened. Number 16A, that's a drainage area. Currently there's a radio tower or cell tower, some type of tower on that property. The use that's there now is going to stay that way. There's really no reason to have it be urban neighborhood, so we're just changing that to more of a Parks and Greenway to support that drainage.
Kelly?
Yes.
Could you let us know some of these areas? So
Oh, sorry, yeah. Well, this map here is showing you kind of the Johnson Ranch area, which is, so along South Valley Drive and East St. Patrick Street. So the other ones you're seeing on here, which is the 16, B, C, and 17, those are all developer-driven. Hanny, of course, brought in a master plan. We've seen all this kind of happening. So we're just cleaning up the land use to match the development. Currently, it's all low-density neighborhood, which he's got all kinds of stuff going on in there, great development. So we're just matching what he's doing to redevelop the property. Okay, this is the east side of Elkvale Road. And again, these are just kind of some cleanups. We're trying to have some more flexible range of uses to promote development. Some of it is changed to match the underlying zoning. And then 19B, you'll see, is already completely developed as residential use. So we're changing that from mixed-use commercial to urban neighborhood. This is, again, a cleanup. This is off Sheridan Lake Road. It's just a residential lot that for some reason still sits at mixed-use commercial. We're trying to find these kind of issues as we're going through the future land use plan and cleaning them up. We recently decided we're going to try to do these about every 6 months. So you'll be seeing me more often bringing forth kind of these cleanup issues and trying to be more flexible with developers, et cetera. So this is over off Minnesota Street, and again, the same situation where it's a cleanup. It was originally public, it developed as a residential area. We're just cleaning up the land use to match what's existing. And this is the last one, the last map change. This is off of Jackson Boulevard. There's just one little lot there that's urban neighborhood, and there is a home there at this time. It's the one single home that's on that street. So we're proposing to change it to employment center. In the future, if that property is ever redeveloped, it would be more appropriate to have more of an office commercial type use rather than one home in the middle of a business area. Does anyone have any questions on the map before I move forward, or any of those specific amendments?
yes, we do have some. Mike?
I would think that this also helps in our transportation future development, because it looks like we have a lot of stuff that you're cleaning up that probably needed to be cleaned up a long time ago. What I like is that, and I've said before, the transportation in our city, sometimes we put in things and then we think about how we're going to get out of them. And we have traffic problems in areas. And I think that this will help with some of that. Leave it, and hopefully the plans come together and make all that happen. We already looked at the traffic earlier and approved that, but I hope that all comes together and we do a better job of planning for the movement of traffic through our city. So, thank you.
Thanks. Vince?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Slide number 21, Comprehensive Plan 19CA002. Got a question, because this has already happened. I mean, we've already changed public quasi-public to low-density neighborhood on this. Is that what this is saying?
Well, we haven't changed it yet. That's what we're bringing forward today. So right now, it's existing public future land use. However, the property is completely developed as residential use. So it's kind of an afterthought. And that's one of the things we're doing with trying to bring forward these comprehensive plans, is areas that are completely developed that we're not going to see any changes happening. You know, no company's going to come in and tear down 40 homes and change it to commercial or back to public. So it's just a reasonable answer to just make the zoning match with the land use.
Okay. There was another question about the slide number 3 and 4, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 19CA002. number 3 and 4.
Okay.
We changed that, excuse me, from forest conservation to low-density neighborhood. Is that the same reasoning behind it? Is there already homes there
Correct.
as well?
Those are both established residential lots.
No, because I remember another issue with this forest conservation area located near South Middle School. And there were homes already there and property was already owned, but we didn't change that.
Well, and we haven't caught up to everything yet.
Oh, okay.
This is a kind of a process. Ken, when he started, brought forward and said, hey, we really need to start getting this future land use under control. We've got a lot of issues throughout the city. These are just the ones we're bringing forward right now. You'll probably see, hopefully, another comprehensive plan amendment around December, where, again, we're going to be bringing some developer-driven changes. We're trying to be more flexible with our future land use while still maintaining the integrity of it. So it's kind of a work in progress. But if you do see any issues like that, please let city staff know and we'll add them to our list.
Thank you.
Okay, Kurt.
So what's the process with these changes? I mean, does staff just make the changes without public input, or is there notification of the landowners, you know, that we're changing the comprehensive plan on their property, or is it just we do it and everybody lives with it?
So this is a planning commission sponsored comprehensive plan amendment. We came to you 6 months ago and said, hey, can we do this? So with that, according to state law, we don't have to do any notifications. The city doesn't have to do any notifications. We don't have to sign it. We're making changes that we feel, that staff feels will better suit the needs of the community.
Okay, it just seems like, you know, if I owned some property in one of these areas and, you know, maybe it was zoned commercial and...
Well, it doesn't change the zoning.
Okay.
There's no zoning changes
All right.
happening. This is just the future land use. This is just...
Sure. So it just affects, if somebody wants to do something in the future, we look at what the comprehensive plan says, and does what they want to do fit that, and then they would have to rezone to match the comprehensive plan?
That's one possibility. On these cases, most of what we're doing is kind of the opposite, though. We're doing things that either the developers already want or fixing what's already there. So it's not really that we're changing things to say in the future you can't or can do this. It's more fixing things that have already happened.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Did you have something further, Vicki?
I think it's important to note that as far as the individual property owners go, the majority of what you're seeing today is based on master plans that have been brought in from that underlying developer. If they own large acreage, and back in the day when Clarion and Associates put together the comprehensive plan that we operate from today, there was speculation, where would that line be between the mixed-use commercial and the urban neighborhood? Now that we've got a developer out there looking at terrain, service boundaries, they're better clarifying where that designation should be. So they're in full support of what we're doing. It is important to note that this does not change the zoning, but a lot of these amendments today are to match the current zoning, where we've just caught that what was brought forward by Clarion Associates was in contradiction to the existing zoning, and that land use does appear to be appropriate for the neighborhood.
And then it would theoretically then improve the chances of getting it zoned properly then?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. If we had an area that staff wanted to change and the underlying property owner was in opposition to it, this would not be the format we would definitely invite that person to come to this meeting and participate in that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Thank you. One of the things that I heard there the developers want, and I guess as long as it's still the comprehensive plan and we continue to understand there are developers out there that may not necessarily fit into what our comprehensive plan is. And so the challenge, I think, as we go forward, and I think the city's we've done a good job of trying to identify that. But I think it's important that we continue to do that. It's not necessarily what the developer wants, because it's not always in the best interest of the city master plan what the developers want. And I just bring that up as something that we should continue to look at.
And city staff meets to discuss that every single time a rezone or a future land use proposal comes through. You know, this is the one I brought up here is a perfect example of a developer-driven. You know, when the initial land use was designated, who knew where the commercial was going to end and the urban neighborhood was going to start with the residential? Nobody knew. That was just vacant property. So the developer has come in and said, we're going to build, you know, 500 residences. It's an appropriate change because we're just moving some boundaries a little bit. We're not bringing in any uses that are detrimental to any of the surrounding areas. And that's one of the main goals of the comprehensive plan is to protect not only the residential, but also the areas that are industrial and keep them the way they are as well. So,
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ken.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that this is all part of a concerted effort that we have on the staff level to look at our comprehensive land use plan as well as where we're sitting with our zoning, so that when we do have these requests that come in to change the zone, we want to take a more serious look. So we're going to step out further as staff as we review and compare the zone change requests with the comprehensive land use plan and make sure that we have good concurrence there. That if we're going to ever recommend a zone change or a rezone against the plan, that there's good thought to that we will only recommend that rezone if we also agree that the plan should be amended and that we will follow up with that immediately. So we will have good concurrence between zoning and the land use plan as much as possible.
Okay, great, thank you. Mike?
And then along with that, I did not get to go to the follow-up meeting after our fire escape. And I was really looking forward to the comprehensive plan part of it because I wanted to sit in on that and see what was going on. Not able to make the next meeting, the follow-up, but I think it's important. It's important to me that the comprehensive plan is something that we use as a guideline. And if we can continue to do that, I think we're going to have more successes in our city planning. So I think it's great that we're setting certain parts. We should use those for commercial. We should use those for industrial and get a plan so that our developers do have an idea of what we're really looking for. And I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Kelly, I do have one question. The one industrial complex that we have along Elkville Road, several meetings ago, we approved to have that church there. And now it's going to be the land use is going to be industrial. What happens to the church and their?
So city staff did not recommend that rezone, if you recall. It was granted, but the truth is that for the future land use, if that church ever goes away, we would want it to go back to industrial. We wouldn't want some other office commercial use to go in there. We're trying to preserve that as an industrial area because it is 90% industrial. So even though it was the zoning is, and the zoning's not always going to match, but hopefully in the future it will match again.
Thank you. That's my hope too. So okay, there's no further comments or questions. So Jason, sorry.
You know, one thing I learned during this is that good planning makes good neighbors, and that's what this is all about. And I like the word guidelines because it gives us a rule of thumb, and every once in a while something may not fit it, but I think that's good for us to be intentionally thinking about this so that as things move forward, and we're flexible, which is great, but you still have to have a plan. And so, yeah, so this is a very valuable tool for the community. As a council member, it certainly is valuable to me. Even when we make the exceptions, it's hopefully for most of us, it's intentional balancing against the comprehensive plan. So it's a great guideline, and I appreciate the responsiveness and, as you said, Ken, the concerted effort to keep the integrity but maintain some flexibility Good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Okay. Now
Okay.
there's yes, Kelly, do you have anything else?
I do. Okay. I have a little bit more, and I'm going to go quick again.
Okay.
So those were the map changes that we did. We also made some changes to our zoning categories, I guess you could call them. So what this is it's our tables that say, in urban neighborhood, what's allowed? Well, what we were seeing was that the primary and secondary uses weren't being represented in that far right corner for zone districts. And so what you'll see is highlighted are our additions that we made as allowable zoning. So we're actually loosening up some of these categories. We want to be more flexible with land use, use it more as a tool, not as a secondary layer of zoning. That's not necessary, and it's not the intent. So the major change that we did was we added public as a secondary use to all of the categories of land use. And the reason behind that is if we need to have utilities or anything, we just want it to be an allowable zoning. So it's in there throughout the entirety. One of the other main changes we made is we did not have urban commercial represented anywhere because it's a brand new zoning. So we did add that into both downtown mixed use and mixed use commercial. So that that zoning designation is now supported. Urban neighborhood was the one that we kind of made the most changes to as far as additions. It's really a unique land use category where we use it as a buffer a lot between heavier commercial and lower density residentials, and it supports a lot of mixed use. And so we wanted to loosen that one up a little bit to allow for a little more flexibility as we're trying to, help developers and help infill development and just kind of make it easier for Rapid City to continue to grow. So those are the changes that we made. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Like I said, we're going to be bringing, oh, go ahead, Ken. We'll be bringing another one, we're going to try to do this twice a year, so.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'd also like to point out the verbiage that has been added at the bottom of the page. This is just giving us a little bit more guideline in specificity. I'll just read that real quickly, what it says. Additional uses in zoning districts may be deemed appropriate by the community development director. I think that we already had that one in there, didn't we? That first line. Well, what we added was the secondary uses within land use category generally mean that a use is acceptable under favorable conditions and or limited to a limited extent. Secondary uses cannot be characterized as a predominant use. And so I think this was something that we needed a little bit more guidance on, is that a secondary use is just that. It's secondary, and it should not be a predominant use in that zone.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I think this is a great way to update the comprehensive plan, and it does give us a better guideline. And I hope that us and any future planning commission people really take those comprehensive plans to heart, because that's kind of what guides our city forward. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, and with that, now I will ask for a motion. No, we don't want to adjourn yet. We need to approve item number 18. No. Okay. Okay, Vince made the motion and Mike seconded to approve item number 18, the comprehensive plan amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Now we can have a, oh, well, but first let's see if there's any discussion. In a hurry. None? Okay, no staff items, nothing? Any?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
A reminder that there is not a meeting in 2 weeks. Your next meeting is July 25th, so happy 4th of July holiday.
Okay, July 25th? Wow. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Justin. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes, and we are adjourned.